Leanne. Guys, it's Leanne. Hi guys, it's Leanne. 2 years ago, I embarked on a reading project that I had no idea would change my reading life forever. I culled my library by 1/3 and I regret nothing. An entire spreadsheet full of bookish statistics. We need to talk. Oh, that hurts me. Really, Queen? Are you sure? It's fine. It's fine. Suck it up, Leanne. Welcome to my 2024 bingo board. But one square on that bingo board from hell continues to defeat me, and that square is, of course, my promise to read 60% of my 2024 purchases. A goal which, although it sounds achievable, has something huge working against it. Me. Every time I haul a book, the number of books that I need to read to reach my goal increases, and the percentage of books that I have already read for the year goes down, putting me further and further away from that elusive 60%. So it's time to get me and this haul pile under control. Welcome to the 60% Diaries. And welcome to the first episode of the 60% Diaries. I'm taking it as a good sign that the sunshine has come out for the start of this vlog. I'm going to assume that it means the universe is looking upon this endeavour favourably. And let's face it, at this point I will take any kind of win. I have read this year 37 books, but the ratings for those 37 books have been, to put not too fine a point on it, all over the shop. Now, we do know that in addition to my 60% square, my bingo board from hell this year has been addressing a lot of my issues. Some of those issues have been things like TBR veterans that have been on my shelf for a really long time, or rainy day books that I'm keeping for that exact precious perfect moment that doesn't exist. But one of the other issues that this bingo board has been dealing with is the fact that I wasn't allowing myself to reread. Mostly because I felt a constant pressure to be picking up new books to bring you guys new and exciting content. A pressure which I will 100% say I put on myself. However, this has made for an interesting statistic, because out of the 37 books that I have read this year, the highest ratings that I have given have also been to those rereads. Don't get me wrong, I've definitely found a few gems this year that are brand new to me, but for the most part all of the 5 stars were going to tried and true books. Which means that this vlog series is not only going to be a quest to make sure that I read 60% of the books that I buy in 2024, but it's also going to be a deep dive into the kind of books that I'm buying and whether they're actually working for me. As I film this vlog, it is May of 2024, which means that we are in the second quarter of this year. And I think that's the perfect time to start this project, because for the first quarter of 2024, while I settled into this new bingo board, I was really kind to myself. I was like, you know what, baby, you pick up anything you want to. And now I'm like, good God, girl, get a grip. Note to self, being gentle with self does not always achieve the desired results. So now that it's quarter 2 and we're getting more serious about this, it's time to unveil the rules of how this challenge is going to work. In every one of these vlogs, I am going to be reading at minimum 3 books. And just for a recap, the books that we are counting towards my acquisitions for 2024 are any books which I have bought myself, any books which I have received as gifts or from my wish list, and any books which I have received solicited from publishers. However, this vlog series is entirely about the books that I buy. And given the fact that just yesterday, while I was preparing the rules for this vlog series and deciding what was going to count towards the books that I had to read, I wandered into a Waterstones and I purchased myself a book. Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about it. It's a mystery and it's from one of my favourite authors and it features an elderly character. Ding ding dings across the board for Leanne. But said Leanne also knew that we were about to start this vlog and definitely snuck that book in under the radar. So given that piece of information, I think we can only assume from that that Leanne is not to be trusted. Which means that the second rule in this vlog project is, if I am physically filming a vlog for my 60% project, any books that I buy during the filming of that vlog have to be read in the same vlog. They will count up to my total of 3, so for example, if I have read 1 book for the vlog and I purchase 2, that will be my 3 books for that vlog. However, if I am already on my 3rd book for that vlog, and I purchased 2 more books. That means that I will be reading 5 books for that vlog, and that vlog will finish when I have finished reading everything that I have purchased. Now, you might think that this is me being a little bit harsh with myself, but personally I think it is a good amount of accountability, because realistically I should be purchasing books that I want to read right now. Not books that even as I'm purchasing them, I am making rainy day books in my head. This is kind of a put your money where your mouth is situation. Which brings me to the final rule, which is simply no skipping, no cheating, and no subverting of the rules. It's about getting hold of the impulse side of the ADHD spending. It's about forcing myself to allow myself to enjoy the things that I want to enjoy when I want to enjoy them. You guys have literally just seen a video where I renovated this place and got rid of a whole bookcase. And my little holly trolley is doing great. I don't want to get back to the point where I have to buy another piece of furniture to accommodate the books that I'm just not reading. As of this point in the year, I have purchased 47 books. And out of that 47 books, I have read 15 of them. That means that currently the percentage of my acquisitions for this year that I have read is 31.9. So in other words, in order to read 60% of the 47 books that I have bought this year, I need to read 28.2 books. I had a big debate with myself about how I was going to pick the books that I read in these vlogs, and I've decided that I'm not going to make any hard and fast rules about it. I'm just going to change it up every time. These are all books that I'm excited about, and I think by being like, you must read this one right now, it might just make a bigger problem. What I did was I went to my spreadsheet, I scrolled through the list of books that I had purchased so far this year, I picked 3 that I was the most excited for and made my patrons make the decision, which I'm not gonna lie is often what I do. So the 3 books that I gave my patrons the choice of were The Examiner by Janice Hallett, Murder Road by Simone St. James, and Sociopath by Patrick Gagney. All 3 of these books are brand new in my house, none of them have even featured in a haul yet. So let's see what my patrons chose. Oh, okay, overwhelmingly with 59% of the vote, we have The Examiner by Janice Hallett. Let me just shuffle on over here and get it for you. Not gonna lie, this one is doubly exciting, not only because this is a proof, it doesn't actually come out until August of 2024, but also because Janice Hallett is one of my favourite authors. I have read everything that she has written, and I have given all of them fairly high stars, so I think that we could be onto a very early, quick win with this vlog. Alright, so first of all, we have this proof, which is unlike any proof I have ever seen before. It's actually a paint by numbers proof, and the publisher sent along markers to replicate the cover. And this little postcard that comes with it says, "What could possibly go wrong on an art course? Enroll August 2024. Lastly, there was this scroll, and I'm hoping that this scroll includes the synopsis, so let's open it together. Oh, okay, it says, "Dear reader, I need to oversee the final grades for a master's degree at a prestigious university. Despite access to all the documents I need and some I wouldn't normally expect to see, I find myself unable to grade the submissions. In fact, I can't quite work out what happened on that course at all. It was either something so disturbing, hello, I can't even bring myself to write it down, or as the police seem to think, it was nothing. I'd appreciate your help. Please read the enclosed and let me know. If my worst fears are true, then one of the students on this course is dead." Okay, not gonna lie, I've just opened the cover for the first time. There is a longer synopsis here, but I'm not gonna do it. I am going to go in with only that information, and then I'm gonna report back to you what I think. So for the record, that is 462 pages on the clock. Let's go. For my appearance, peeps. Let my hair air dry after a shower. And true to the fickleness of Scottish weather, we have had 2 absolutely blisteringly beautiful days. And now I'm actually in an hoodie, which I usually hate for sensory reasons. These usually just make me feel like really suffocated. But I was so cold that I had to pinch Harry's quokka one. And yet somehow it's still humid enough to do this. Go figure. Anyway, I'm here with a book update and it is definitely a favourable one. However, I am also here extremely sleep deprived, so if this update isn't stellar, that is because our lovely little McNabb, this is he, had all of his teeth removed at the start of the week. Fun fact, did you know that cats and horses can both start reabsorbing their teeth if their body thinks something's wrong with them? An incredibly grim detail I could have gone my entire life without knowing, and now I've imparted upon you. You're welcome. But as you can imagine, it was quite a long and painful procedure for him, and the actual healing part has been really painful too. So he is being exclusively syringe fed right now because he can't actually eat anything, and it's literally like having a newborn baby, something which I have never voluntarily done for a reason. Chronic illness and getting up in the middle of the night to do feeds, not fun. So I now know more about this book and can give you a better synopsis. As with all of Janice Hallett's books, this one is not a setup that I would ever have thought, yeah, let's have a mystery novel based in that place with those people. And yet somehow it just works. So this one is all set around a master's degree program for people who want to take their artistic skills and make them marketable. And because it is an advanced course for mature students, everybody is coming from some very different backgrounds, which is, as true Janice Hallett fashion, making for severe friction, some horribly cringy bumhole moments, and also that very unique mix of personalities that I mostly associate with Golden Age crime novels. I'm thinking like Dorothy L. Sayers or Agatha Christie, you know, writers who are able in a very concise way to get across the exact personality of a character, but with very few lines of dialogue. I don't think I mentioned this before, but in case you're new to Janice Hallett, her books are exclusively written in mixed media. In this case, there are like doodle chats, which is like teams. There are emails, there's course materials, there's things that they've submitted, and all of the little pieces together build and make all of these circumstances that you find them in. But again, you're only getting these characters from dialogue, and I think that Janice Hallett does an amazing job of both making these characters seem so ordinary and throwaway that you're like, why do they get an entire book about them? And also making some people so hateful but so readable. So I'm on page 131 and I am having a grand old time. This reads incredibly fast, which is really good for me right now because my brain is just not there. I'm going to settle down with this and read another big chunk tonight. I do have a few other books that I need to make progress on which aren't part of the vlog. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to devote all of my time to this one, but I'm going to give it a good old go. Hopefully next time you see me, I won't look like this.
I knew that my life was going to be absolutely completely different from that point on.
It would be hard to do a 4x4 grid in a month without doubling up, to be honest. Oh, hold on. That's my front door, one sec. From Vintage. So let's find out together. Oh. Okay, I've just had a thought. Like, how does this impact my 60% reading vlog? Okay, so obviously we know that if I actively go out and buy any books during the filming of this vlog, I have to read them for this vlog. However, we didn't say anything about what happens if I receive a book from a wish list or if I get a book from a publisher, which is exactly what has just happened. So this is You Don't Have to Be Mad to Work Here, A Psychiatrist's Life by Dr. Benji Waterhouse. The lovely people at Vintage contacted me earlier this week and asked me if I would like to receive a copy of this. They're now faced with a dilemma. This is a book which I actively said yes to, but does that mean because I said yes and because it arrived within the timing of this vlog that I have to read it? Or do we count things like this, wishlist things and pre-orders as things that I had no control control over the timing off. I'm on sprints right now with my patrons and I asked them their opinion and they are also in two minds. They're like, well, you did say yes to it, but like also you didn't have any control over when it was going to turn up. Also, this presents another dilemma because if I use this system, then potentially in a week that I received a lot of books, I would only be able to read the newest books that were coming into my library, which would put even more distance between me and the books that I bought at the start of the year and haven't read, and that leaves them in more and more danger of becoming like a rainy day book or a TBR veteran book because I'm further away from the excitement of having purchased them. So we don't actually have to decide what happens with this one until I have finished the examiner, so I'm gonna have a think about it. I'm maybe gonna do a couple of polls for my patrons and I will let you know what I have decided when I finish this one.
I switch gears like a stick shift. Won't make sense as a poem. Don't hit me with your small talk if you ever wanna know me. Won't pretend.
Oh, my friends. I am here with my final book update for the first book in this vlog, and it's not a favourable update. How far we have come from the brand new starry-eyed Leanne of the beginning of this vlog who was like, I'm so excited! Alas, she and her hopes have been dashed. Because for me, this book has got two massive flaws. And the first one for me is kind of a really surprising one, because the thing that I love the most about Janice Hallett books is, as I said, they are all completely mixed media, and I was so excited because this book was taking place in a university, and what one of us who went to a university don't kind of miss all of the ephemera of the course materials and the assignments. There was too much in here of the course material. For every time they submitted an assignment, there would be what the assignment is, there would be their assignment, then there would be the marker responding and giving feedback to their assignment. And while I love the fact that all of Janice Hallett's books feel so relatable, it was not, however, really fun to read about and relive my student years of people moaning in group chats, and that is what the first half of this book is. By literally the middle half of this book, we had like 5 or 6 different tiny mysteries that had all come up through the course of this course, and I had A, no answers for them, but B, no reason to really care about getting answers for them. And I felt like the 100 pages in the middle of this book were kind of like a washing machine cycle, rinse and repeat. So by the time that the big like twist came, by the time that we realised all of these things that you've been reading aren't quite what you thought that they were, it was an absolute slog to get to the end of it. And I hate to say it, but the actual big reveal of this, like the core of what's really going on in this book, when we got to it, I was just kind of like, I don't believe it. I can't suspend my disbelief for the twist in this. The other thing in here that I just could not get over is that, and there's going to be spoilers here, there's no way to talk about this otherwise, so I'll put a spoiler warning on the screen. One of the big reveals midway through this book is that one of the characters on this course is actually blind. There are so many reasons why I hated it. I hated the fact that her disability was a plot point. I hated the discussion that some of the characters had after it, where the characters debated whether being blind had given her superpowers, whereby her hearing was now so like advanced. She had like superhuman echolocation skills now. There is also a part all the way through here where one of the administrators is emailing the person who runs this course constantly and being like, where are your diversity forms, girl? But the entire conversation over these diversity forms with the course administrator and the character who is blind is then like, I don't consider myself to be disabled, so I don't want to tick the box on this form. And I don't think I need to point out all of the different ways why that is screwed up. Like having the main blind character be like, no, I'm more than my disability doesn't define me, is so clearly an ableist mindset of what a disabled character may act like. But then also forcing that character who says, I don't identify as having this, I don't want to tick this box, forcing that character on the page to tick that box for diversity purposes, and literally everything from then on with that character, including at the end when they're holding something and they don't know what they're holding because they are blind, and the whole rest of the room is like, gasp, oh my god, look at the thing you're holding. It was just gross and I really hated it. It's left such a bad taste in my mouth, and I I'm so disappointed. Are these 60% diaries actually showing me that I don't know my reading tastes anymore? Damn, I do not like that for me. But that does bring us to the question of what we are going to choose as our next book and what the rules are going to be going forward about books that come into my house during the filming of a vlog. So I have decided that any books that come in from publishers, my wish list, or pre-orders during the filming of one of these vlogs don't count, because I don't have any kind of control over the timing of any of those things. And despite the fact that I may or may not have wandered into a bookshop since the last time we spoke, I have still not knowingly bought anything. Gold star or something. But that doesn't help us with our next pick. So here is what I am thinking. The Examiner was one of my most anticipated books of the year. It was one of the books that I was hoping was going to end up being a 5-star and was going to break my 5-star drought. And it hasn't. Other books that I have brought in so far in 2024 don't quite have that same pressure on them. They're books that I'm hoping that I love and give 5 stars to, but they're not necessarily like pre-ordered, this is my most anticipated, I am desperate for this particular book. However, there is one other book that exists right now in my library which does meet that criteria. And now that I'm in a full existential crisis about whether I can actually pick myself 5-star books or not, we're going to read that book. That book being this one. This is The Will of the Many by James Islington. It is a high fantasy. It is the first in a trilogy. It's a Roman take on a high fantasy book, and it has most often so far been compared to the Red Rising series, otherwise known as one of my favourite series in the entire world. So we are going to give this a go. I also have the audiobook of this, which will help me along with it because it is a chunker. And we will hope that book 2 is more successful than book 1. Because I'm not going to lie, kind of devilled. Kind of feel like my confidence is knocked. It's going to take a lot to claw me back. Okay, you're at a tiny bit of an awkward angle, but we are going with it because I only have 5 minutes before I have to do all of my morning chores and then rush out to an appointment. And it's something that I really don't want to do. So I have, in another one of my little ADHD hacks, left everything to the last minute so that I have to just like rush through all of it and I don't have time to think about where I'm going. Genuinely, it's better than the appointment paralysis by far. So touch wood, my friends. Stroke the wood, in fact. I think we may actually have cracked it. I think we may actually have found a most anticipated book from my shelves, which might end up being 5 stars at the end of it. Now, it's still early doors. There's a chance that this one could go south. The Examiner fooled me for at least 100 pages, but having now read just over 100 pages of this one, I'm already getting a proper vibe. I went into this one with only a very vague synopsis, knowing only that it is compared to Red Rising, primarily because there is a student in this book who like infiltrates an academy, which is pretty much exactly what Darrow does in Red Rising. He infiltrates the elite training academy of the Gold, and also the entire society here is heavily based on the Roman Empire, which again is very like Red Rising. So in this one we are following Viz, and Viz is an orphan who has a lot of different dark secrets in his back pocket. He works at a prison maintaining the prisoners. He also fights in the evenings to try desperately to gather together some coin from the bets, and he resides and works at an orphanage. But we're all very clear right from the beginning that that story is not even a fraction of Viz's real backstory, and Viz is not their real name. Viz is in hiding from the powers that be of this world who want him to submit. Every child by the time that they're like 16 has submitted to seed will, because the magic system in this world works essentially by all of the lower ranking members of the society from the plebs upwards seeding will, so giving up their energy and their drive and a little part of their soul essentially to the next rank above them. Higher up the ranks, the more will that you are pulling from, and so therefore the more essentially magic you are able to do. Although so far the magic has been very based on like movement and propulsion. Now within the first 100 pages we as a reader find out exactly who Viz is, and I'm not going to tell you because I have a strong suspicion that this book is going to be just like reveal after reveal after reveal, because there's already just after 100 pages been like a setting shift and a bunch of lies have been exposed but we also know that there's another bunch of lies that are under the surface. There are already several factions vying for Viz. And so very much like Red Rising, we know from the beginning that the stakes are super high, like ridiculously high. That makes me super happy because it's such a contrast to the first book in this vlog where I felt like the stakes were kind of just like, oh no, I got a B. The writing in this is the perfect blend for me between descriptive and genuinely quite beautiful passages, cracking dialogue with like so much tension woven into it, and information. I already know how the entire empire is structured and exactly how the magic system works, and I don't feel like I'm overburdened by that within 100 pages. Okay, well, I need to go do the thing that I don't want to do now, so I guess I'll be back when I've done that and I've read more of this book.
Won't pretend that I don't care, 'cause I'm not a simp for the culture. Why can't we just decide to delete IG from my phones, yeah? Oh no. Hey, 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 hey.
I finished it. I finished it and I'm not okay. I do not know how to sum up how much I love this book. I wish I could also say that this has solidified my confidence that most of the books that I pick for myself are books that are for me. But I'm not gonna lie, I've had a few other DNFs this week that haven't been part of this vlog, that haven't been brand new books to my shelves. And oh boy, the crisis of confidence is alive and well. But getting back to this book specifically, I don't know if I said before when I originally showed you guys this book or not, but this is my first James Islington. I haven't read the Lycanius trilogy, even though I do have the first book in it on my shelves, and I have had it on my shelves for quite a while. So I honestly didn't know what to expect apart from obviously the comparisons to Red Rising, which we have discussed. But for me, this book has just done this amazing straddle between all of the things that I really, really love in traditional fantasy, all of the tropes that we recycle again and again because they're good tropes, because they're staples of the genre, and brand new concepts that I have never read before in fantasy. And really, really, it takes a lot these days to make me this excited about a new series, because at this point in my life, I have read so much fantasy that my bar for what is excellent is so much higher. Most new series that I start just end up being in like the good category, and I might be buying myself a new edition of this book and putting this one on Vinted because I have somewhat wrecked it in the reading process of it. Now the other problem with this book, as you will probably have seen if you have seen anybody else's reviews being extremely excited about this one, is that it's very, very difficult to give you any of the details about the things that are amazing in it without giving away plot points, because realistically that is the real hook of this book, is that it is so intricately plotted. You are being lied to at every single turn in this book by almost every character in some way, and sometimes that can feel quite overwhelming, especially in like con or heist fantasy books. But in this one it was just so carefully balanced so that every time a reveal clicked in, you were like, oh, but how does that affect the thing that affects the thing that, oh. And I never felt like it was too much information. I never felt like I was drowning under all of the ephemera and the set pieces of this. I felt like everything that I was told in this book was necessary to my experience. But there is a mechanism in this book. It's a very interesting way of putting it, actually. A mechanism. There is a mechanism in this book whereby at one point everything flips. The whole thing turns on its head and you're just left reeling but desperately turning pages to see how it's going to turn out. So A++ on the plot for me, 10 out of 10, no notes. The other thing that I absolutely adored in this one was James Islington's character work. When you read a book wherein you know that almost everybody is lying to you, because there is a certain point in this book where you kind of start to work out that you can't trust anybody, sometimes that can also lead to you just disliking the characters because everybody is so unreliable that you don't trust anybody. You have no real connection with anybody because it has no foundation. But this book was so very much not that. I adored so many of the characters in this book. even some of the characters that James Islington brought in and was like, this person is quite detestable, don't you think? Because like, I do think that. I do think that they're pretty awful. I still want to read more about them though. And I think that the real mark of somebody who does character work excellently is when you have a character who is dead from the very first page of the book, but who by the end of it you care about just as much as all of the characters that you followed physically. I think that that's just expert level writing. Again, 10 out of 10 would character again. Now, no book that you pick up is going to be completely flawless. There's always going to be a couple of little things that you might have wished would be different, but the only things in this book that I really wish that I had got more of was more sort of descriptions of the settings. Like I said, James Islington's writing is lovely and I was able to at all points picture where I was, but there wasn't that kind of like lush description that made me want to be there. And I'm not talking about the types of fantasy books where you can literally recreate the map of a town because there was so much minutiae in there, but I just felt like I needed a little tiny bit more. A little bit more information dropped in here and there about, I don't know, like plants or roof tiles or something, just to give it a little bit more character, but that really is kind of nitpicky at this point. So I did not expect to finish this chunker quite so quickly in this vlog, but here we go. We have ticked off the page count, and you guys know that I can't do maths off the top of my head, but that brings us up to this many pages read for this vlog. And I guess all that really leaves me to do is to pick the next book that we're going to be reading, the third and possibly final book for the vlog. How and ever, I am not going to be doing that today. I have a bunch of other books that I need to finish off today for other projects, and then tomorrow I am going on a castle adventure with my lovely friend Jill, so I don't think I'm going to be reading at all tomorrow either. I need the sequel right now.
I just want to forget about the things I had to do. Turn my force to trampolines, levitate right through the roof. Levitate right through the roof now. Forget what I have to do now. I'm not good at dancing, so just be with me tonight. Wanna taste your chapstick, call it mango sugar.
Hello. So, I broke my ankle and therefore there has been a significant pause in the middle of this vlog. Truly, it's a blessing that I did so many things at the start of this vlog, because otherwise all of the footage would just be in various positions in the bedroom. I didn't mean it that way. As you saw in the clip right before this sad update, at the end of Jill and I's lovely day out and before the ankle incident, I did in fact buy 2 books, and that means, as per the rules of this vlog, that I have to read both of those books before this vlog can finish. So I mean, for you guys, effectively that's just, yay, more vlog. But for me, that means attempting to not only finish the 2 books in this vlog, but also get the rest of my reading life back on track. So here are the 2 books that we have. One of them still has the belly band on it from Toppings because it's signed by the author, so we'll go for that one first. I actually picked this up on the table in Toppings. The one right as you come in the door that's filled with like brand new paperback titles that you've probably never heard of before. And I almost always have like deep success with Toppings tables because they are truly an indie. They can like curate their tables however they like, and so it does mean that some like small publisher books end up there, and that's how I found this one. Hold on. That is more aesthetically pleasing. Still working out what to do with my new filming environment. So this is Fragile Animals by Genevieve Jagger, and when I picked this up at the table and Toppings, a bookseller just like materialized in front of me, and she essentially said, "You look like you like dark queer stories." And I was like, damn, I've peaked. And the bookseller proceeded to sell this to me as an extremely dark, extremely queer vampire book. It takes place on a small Scottish island, and the main character has chronic IBS. And I literally just stood there looking at her dumbly like, say less. But having now done a little bit more research on it, essentially this one is about a character called Noelle who leaves Edinburgh and like runs away to the very remote Isle of Bute. She's She's escaping a horrible relationship with her mother and some really like oppressive religion in her past, and all of which are like tick 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 for me. And there she meets a man who claims to be a vampire. Genevieve Jagger looks exactly like a person who would write this book, and I am so here for it. The second book that I picked up is also incredibly dark. This one is a thriller, however, and it's a thriller that kind of retells actual historical events, which is not something that I would normally pick up in a thriller. But this book was actually a Jill recommendation. As soon as she saw it on one of the tables upstairs in Topping, she was like, have you read this? Because if not, I think you would love it. While I haven't read this book, I do know a bit about the author because Jessica Knoll's other book was Luckiest Girl Alive, which ended up having a Netflix adaptation, which was phenomenal, and people were feral for that book when it came out. This book is Bright Young Woman by Jessica Knoll. So the reason that I say that this one is loosely based on real historical events is because this entire book's premise takes place in Tallahassee in 1978 in the aftermath of one of Ted Bundy's real assaults. So Ted Bundy went into a sorority house in January of 78, and I think in the real original attack he killed 2 women and maimed 3. And this book follows the fictionalized character of Pamela, who is a sorority girl living in that sorority house, who is one of the people who in the morning wakes up and discovers that she herself is not dead, but that some of her friends are, and some of her friends are very not okay. Now I'm just gonna say it straight up, and you guys know it already, serial killers and thrillers, not usually something I care about. As somebody who reads and consumes a lot of true crime, serial killers are kind of like the least interesting entity to me. So independently, I probably wouldn't have picked this book up after I worked out the Ted Bundy connection, but Jill and I know each other's reading tastes quite well now, so I believe her when she says that this is probably right up my alley. So now I guess what we need to decide is which one of these I am going to read first. I think it's entirely probable that on one of my audiobook services I have the audiobook for Bright Young Women. Like, I probably have access to that somewhere. I doubt, however, that I will have access to an audiobook of Fragile Animals. What I may actually do for the end of this vlog is read these two alongside each other. Because of the limited mobility thing right now, it's really difficult to sit anywhere in any one place for any long period of time. My ankle's already throbbing sitting in this position. For that reason, borrowing this on audiobook and immersively reading it is probably a good idea, because I'll be able to switch out when I can't sit up and hold a book. And for times when I can sit up and hold a book, or I am on sprints, I can read this one. Normally, I think for these vlogs, I probably wouldn't tandem read any of the books alongside each other, but we're going to call this an exceptional set of circumstances. And we're just going to roll with it, okay?
I just want to forget about the things I had to do. Turn my floors to trampolines, levitate right through the roof. I just want to forget about the things I had to do. Turn my floors to trampolines, levitate right through the roof.
Hello. I am here with a somewhat unfavourable update. So I am on sprints right now with Sandra from Got a Thing for Things and a bunch of other lovely booktubers. And you know what? We were all so excited for me to continue on with this book. It was very topical because the sprints are the Phase Engaged readathon sprints. And as previously discussed, this one is queer and does include vampires. So it felt like it fitted right in. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit right in for me. I am 47 pages through this book, and unfortunately it is going to be a DNF. I don't mind gross horror. And when I say gross horror, I'm not talking like body horror or, you know, like spore horror, which often has really quite visceral descriptions of plants and the way that they take over bodies and things. I don't mind any of those themes. I'm not talking about those kind of like gross horror themes. I'm talking about horror books wherein every other sentence has some sort of detail which is just mildly off-putting. And unfortunately, this book Although beautifully written in parts, Genevieve Jagger clearly has a wonderful skill for constructing sentences. In amongst all of that, there are details that are thrown in there which are kind of unnecessary. There was, for example, a great amount of detail given to the yellowing plaque around somebody's teeth when they showed their gums. There's a very kind of protracted couple of paragraphs where the person who is giving our main character a lift to the little cottage that she's going to stay in picks his nose and spends time like hacking up phlegm, none of which was important for me to know, none of which really added particularly to the atmosphere. And there is an atmosphere in this. Our main character Noelle is trying to escape the mainland. She's trying to escape the city. She feels like everything's got a bit too much. She's even left her phone behind. She really has just kind of done the stick a finger on the map, this is where I'm going to go. It feels very gothic, it feels very oppressive. All of those things are great. We don't need the other stuff. There is genuinely just a subset of horror where I feel like there are details thrown in there just to make the reader go, ugh. And the thing that tipped me really over the edge was that our main character was talking about one of her flatmates, who she described as like a half flatmate, which I thought was really clever because we've all had that flatmate who kind of like exists in name only and their stuff's there but you never see them. She was talking about when she left and what stuff she left behind, and one of the things that she left behind was a used moon cup which she like left on her windowsill in the bathroom because she couldn't bring herself to touch it or throw it out. And then she reports on like how much this moon cup has degraded sitting on this windowsill and what the blood in it has done. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, I see what you're doing, but it's not landing for me. Unfortunately, a lot of this book feels very style over substance. At nearly 50 pages, I don't have a clue why I should care about Noelle or why I should care about the person who she has met when she's gone to this holiday cottage. And there's no real spoiler here to say that the man that she meets is the man who then claims to be a vampire, something which he tells her like very early on. That was another thing that gave me massive red flags, because when they get into this discussion about him being a vampire, it's literally because he won't leave her alone. And instead of this guy coming across as like dangerous or weird or sinister or like very slowly and insidiously insinuating himself, he's just full on in her face, won't leave her alone. She actually outright says to him, you're weird, you're uncomfortable, you're pestering me, and he just keeps going, and yet somehow she stays in conversation with him. And unfortunately for me, that also just felt weird for the sake of being weird. It's almost like the author was doing a look at how dangerous this situation is that my character has put themselves in. Doesn't this really hint at them being damaged? And it does, but not in a way that I want to read about. So yeah, I'm real sad about this one. It is going to be a DNF for me. So that means that we're sitting at completed but didn't really like it, completed and absolutely freaking obsessed with it, and a big fat DNF. Feels like an interesting place to be at this point in the vlog. Alright, so all that being said, I'm gonna go add this to Goodreads and Storygraph and my reading tracker, mark it off as read for my 2024 acquisition spreadsheet, and then I'm gonna move on to the final book for this vlog. Let's hope that we continue the pattern of meh, yay, meh, yay. I would really like that.
I just want to forget about the things I had to do. Turn my force to trampolines, levitate right through the roof. Levitate right through the roof now. Forget what I have to do now. I'm not good at dancing, so just be with me tonight. Wanna taste your chapstick, call it maybe.
Look at me getting creative and finding different areas of my study to film in, so that for the duration of the ankle you're not just looking at me in one position where I film all my other videos at my desk. Anyway, hi, hello, how the devil are you? I am having a pajama day today with my patrons. We are having a Sunday full of just printing and reading. I bought brand new jammies, not necessarily for the occasion, but because new jammies make me happy. So I am 61 pages through, past my first little tabby marker. Also, if you missed where I talked about doing this, it was in my how to read more video. So I just want to serve this tip again, just in case you did like miss that video. Your girl's not an annotating bitch. I do not write in my books. It's not because I think it's sacrilegious to write in your books, by the way. It's just because university has ruined that practice for me. But I do still buy these little tabbies on the regular because I tab them as like milestones for me to hit while I'm reading the book. So I tab every 50 pages. As I said in my video, your mileage may vary. You may find that you want to tab every 20 pages or every 30 pages to start with. For me, it's 50 pages because that is a good reading session for me. That's just about an hour of reading normally. And every time you hit a tab, the next tab is just a tiny little bit in the distance. You could also, if you wanted, reward yourself with little treats for hitting each of these tabbies. Yeah, genuinely having these in books makes me read faster. I don't know why, it just makes my brain feel good. So we've hit the first little tabby and we are on our way to the next one. And I have an interesting update for this one. First of all, Jill was right on. This is exactly the kind of tone of book that I really enjoy. The main character so far, Pamela, because we're still in the 1978 like Tallahassee part of this book, Pamela is not traditionally likeable. She's a character that, as she says herself, has had to modify her behaviour to her circumstances in order to be like more socially acceptable for her friend group in this sorority. And I really love that. It's a kind of like quite dry, quite matter-of-fact way of speaking, which you don't usually expect from a cis female character. Because of that, there's also a thing that I find hard to quantify in the writing of this book, but it reminds me a lot of the writing that you find in Ashley Winstead books, or like Victoria Helen Stone's writing. There's something a bit oppressive and something a bit, I want to say gritty, but that's not necessarily the word that I'm looking for. It's a tone that kind of has like one foot in true crime and one foot in thriller, I guess. So on the one hand, I'm really enjoying this book because the writing is absolutely 100% my thing, but there's something about reading this knowing that it is actually based on real events which makes me feel a little bit morally weird. Not necessarily morally wrong, but just a little bit like, keep getting the impulse to Google the facts in this and find out which are true and which are not, and whether the victims' names are their real names. And there are a couple of scenes in here which are so confronting, where Pamela has to ring home to the girls who have been injured in these attacks and talk to their parents. And in one case, she initially tells their parents they've been taken to the hospital, this is what's happened, and then she's informed by somebody that one of the girls has died, and she has to quickly phone back her parents and be like, I'm sorry to tell you this, but she is in fact not fine and on her way to the hospital. She passed away before she got to the hospital. And their breakdown, like their whole and I feel like if I'd been reading that in a true crime book where this was like, this is the reaction of her parents, I would have been like, that's harrowing, but okay. But in here, it feels, I don't want to say exploitative, because I feel like this has been done with like a great deal of sensitivity. Having spoken to a few of my patrons now who have read this book, it turns out that Jessica Knowles done quite a few interviews about this and about how she interviewed the real victims and the real families, and they were very keen for this story to be told because nobody tells this story in the wider scheme of Ted Bundy's crimes. And so that's a great thing in a way, but also I don't know how to feel about it. So it's a really interesting update. All of those 61 pages were the one session where I was just like, so that's my update. I'm now going to go and enjoy my pajama date with my patrons and read more of this, and I will come back and tell you what I think. I'm also going to try and finish a cross stitch when I'm with my patrons. So for backstory, I started this little cross stitch in March when I was away for my birthday couple of days, and we all know how that went. We all know how ill I was in the follow-up to my birthday. And so this little cross stitch, which eventually will be a house of flowers around the phrase home sweet home, has remained half done for just such a long time. I poo-pooed cross stitch for a lot of my life, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't often like the resulting end designs in cross stitch, but I have discovered that because I don't really care about it that much, I can actually turn my brain off when I'm doing this craft, which is not something that I can do with knitting. I can't really audiobook and do that at the same time. I'm doing too much counting and stuff. But with cross stitches, it doesn't really matter if I make a mistake or whatever. I can just patch it over or unpick it. Like, it's not a huge deal, and so I'm finding it really relaxing to do. But I've definitely fallen out of the habit, and I've got two on the go. I've got this little one one and I've got like a bigger one that's actually in a hoop. So yeah, I'm going to be doing this while I am listening to the Jessica Knoll book, and we'll see by the end of sprints how much of this I managed to get done.
I just want to forget about the things I had to do. Turn my force to trampolines, levitate right through the roof. Levitate right through the roof now.
Hi my guys. As you can see, I am getting ready to film a video, probably because this is the only time in this entire vlog that I've looked put together in any way. I don't even know if you saw clips of me when I was out with Jill. I think you just saw clips of the things we were doing. So I promise my face does occasionally look like this. Just, you know, not when I'm lying around my house reading books or nursing the broken ankle. So I am here to give you an update on two things. First of all, the thing that I know that you're all so much anticipating, the progress of my cross stitch. Here's where we're at. I did all of this flower, and I filled in all the little bits that were bothering me up here. I definitely like miscounted a few stitches and had to like fill in a few holes, but luckily this is a design that's very forgiving and you're not really going to notice that that's happened. The second thing that I want to update you guys on is of course Bright Young Woman. I am officially halfway through this one and I have to say I am devouring it. In fact, I think I would probably have finished this one if it wasn't for the fact that the spinner on my Patreon prompts said no. Look, it's not that I don't still have some reservations. I definitely do still have a few little like tingly things in the back of my brain where I'm reading something and wondering if it's fact or fiction. But that being said, I am adoring this. In fact, the minute that I finish filming this clip, I am going off to order the other book that Jessica Knoll has written, My Favourite Sister, I think. Jessica Knoll's writing is so twisty, but very subtly twisty. It's not like she's throwing tons of red herrings at you all over the place. It's just like you get to the end of a paragraph and there's a sentence where you're like, oh, I need the next chapter right now. That's very much how I feel. I really don't want to film right now. I really just want to read this book. But I can't. I have to go film videos and then I will read the end of this and I'll come back and I will tell you what I think. And maybe I'll also cross stitch some flowers on my lunch. I finished it and I have thoughts. Firstly, I'm really sorry if this isn't entirely in focus. I somehow misplaced my small tripod and my big camera doesn't have a flip screen. So I have absolutely no idea right now whether the wall behind me is in focus or whether it's me. Guys, it's not often that I give you an update from midway through a book where I'm like, I really love the writing, I really love what the book's doing, but I have all of these issues because this is based on real events. And that in the journey from that page, the midway point, to the final page, I'm like, do you know what? I take it all back. I eat my words. I absolutely loved this. There's a scene at the end that made me cry. I've said a few times recently that I've cried at books. Those books are usually long-running series where I've been with the characters for a long time. Like The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb or Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Even the conclusion to the Lockwood & Co books, which has a few really sad bits in it, and you guys know that's one of my favourite series in the entire world, didn't make me cry. But I had actual genuine tear streaks. Unfortunately, because of the way that things wrap up from the midpoint of this book onwards, it's kind of impossible to tell you about anything that happened and why my opinion is so wildly different now. So instead I'll just tell you all of the other things, which is that if any other book had done this, if any other writer recently had tried this, a sort of mid-book flip of events on me, I would have felt a little bit catfished. There's a perspective right in the middle which just sort of pops in and you're like, what, where, we're where now? What time zone are we in? Because the time zones that we have are 1978 and a few years before that. And suddenly there's a modern perspective like in the middle of this book and I was like, wait, what's happening? But Jessica Knoll just carried it off so well. I would say that my comparisons earlier on in this video to like Victoria Helen Stone and Ashley Winstead's like format of writing definitely hold up, but also Gillian Flynn. I realised as I was nearing the end of this that the characters in here and the way that they portray themselves is kind of like the complicated multi-layered way that you get in Sharp Objects. So I haven't yet ordered her middle book, but I will be doing so. And I actually think that I might now go back and read Luckiest Girl Alive as well, because although I've seen the adaptation of it and like I know the twists and stuff, I love the way that she handled some things in this book, and I wonder if they would be similarly handled in that one. So where does that leave us at the end of our first 60% Diaries? Well, here are the ratings so far, and here's what it looks like if we add on this book. Now obviously at the beginning of this vlog I told you guys straight up that this isn't really just about reading all of the brand new books that I've bought this year. It's also kind of like an exercise in trying to find for me whether I still know my taste, whether I can still pick a 4 or 5 star more often than not when I buy new books. So I think when it comes to this mix, the jury's still out. The 2 big wins that were on it were not put on my radar by me. So I am a little bit shaken, just a tad. I do, however, already know the next 3 books that are going to comprise the next episode of the 60% Diaries, if and of course I don't go out and buy stuff during the vlog and then have to make it a mammoth task. And none of those books were chosen for that vlog by me, so comparing them is going to be fun too. So before I go, let's see where my percentages for my 60% square now sit. You guys obviously know that because of the ankle there was a big gap in the middle of this vlog, so the percentages have jumped more than they ordinarily would when I'm filming one of these. So as of you seeing this vlog, the percentage of my 60% purchases that I have read so far for 2024 is this. This is after I did a big book haul that had been accumulating on my Holly trolley, and after I managed to knock quite a few books off in the last month. And again, I don't really know how I feel about this percentage either, because it always looks real healthy for 5 minutes and then things happen. Books just float in, and I always think I'm doing amazingly managing to knock books off, and then I watch the numbers roll back down the hill and I'm like, maybe not. But I guess that's a bigger conversation for my mid-year stats video, which you guys will also be seeing really soon. I hope that you guys love the 60% Diaries as much as I love the 60% Diaries. I am so excited to bring you this vlog series. I am so incredibly passionate about it. So I hope that the format of the challenge, the editing, the rules for it and everything are all fun for you guys. If you have got this far through the video, then leave me down below in the comments the little money flying away emoji, or you know, the bag of gold, or any other cash related emojis for the amount of money that I have spent on books this year that I have ended up not loving. It's a mildly depressing emoji, but it's very accurate. And of course, if you have read any of the books that I've talked about here today and you would like to tell me your opinions about them, then please leave that down below in the comments, because you know that opinions live here. If you're brand new to this channel and you want to catch the second episode of the 60% Diaries, hit that subscribe button on your way out. And if you're already one of my lovely subscribers who has been waiting for bated breath for this series to drop, then please hit that like button on the way out, because it really does help my channel. And I'll speak to you all in the next 60% Diaries. Bye!